Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you?
I am wonderful. And you?
Crystal, I tell you, if I was doing any better, I'd be as pretty as you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, happy belated birthday. And
Thank
I,
you.
I see that from our conversation, you had a great time and will be continuing to celebrate for the rest of the month, I take it.
Yes, yes. And of course, the best part of any celebration is friends and family. And so just being around like-minded friends, because I have some friends who are not like-minded. So
Okay.
like-minded friends for this particular occasion was very super cool.
Oh,
Very,
good.
that's a word. I don't know if you can string those adjectives together, but
That's
very cool.
okay. You can for your birthday.
Thank you. Thank
If
you.
if that man running for office can string some interesting words together, you can do whatever you want.
Indeed, indeed. Well said. Well said. Well said.
Whatever you want.
Well said.
So, what we
Well
talking
said.
about today?
Well, I am particularly excited about today because I'm always excited to spend some time with you and our viewers. But this is an issue that's been bothering many people I talk to for quite some time, even folks in my own family, and that is how to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in your 401k. And there's two methods. One is leaving the money inside an IRA, and the other is leaving the money inside your old 401k. So we're going to talk about how those can be bad things. And
Hmm.
the interesting thing is that millions of dollars are lost by 401k participants because they do these things. We're just going to break that open real quick. So before we
Mm,
do that, let me read your bio and
okay,
then
sounds
um,
good.
and we'll get started. That's okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. Please welcome my friend and colleague, Crystal Mitchell. She is a business coach and consultant, the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co-director of Recycling Black Dollar. She's also the co-host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, another weekly online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, how you doing?
I'm wonderful,
Good
just
deal.
wonderful.
Okay. Well, let's
Yeah.
jump right in. So,
Okay.
uh, scenario number one: a client comes up to me and says, and I think we may have talked about this before. XYZ company took my money, and I lost about half of my retirement plan because we moved it to them. All right. Okay. So of course I'm interested, and the situation and we're not gonna talk about this, but when you move your money to any place outside of an IRA, that is, you move your money to a checking account or a savings account, um, the mutual fund company, and this is tradition, so it doesn't have to be done, and different companies have different philosophies on it, but for our purposes, this
Hmm.
particular company, and I know them very well, they withheld 20% as a down payment on the taxes you're going to owe on the monies that you receive. All right, so that's pretty important to realize that if you move your monies from your 401k plan into your checking account, right, then taxes are going to be withheld very most likely.
Okay.
Some companies will say no, but most likely taxes are going to be held and be withheld. And the reason for that is most people forget they made the transfer, and so they get hit with this massive tax bill when they file. And
Hmm.
companies withhold that money. That is, they pay the taxes or pay part of the taxes on your behalf. So you haven't really lost the money. They're actually prepaying the taxes for you. They don't collect it. They don't keep it. They don't put it back into the fund. They don't do anything like that. They actually pay the federal government, the IRS, on your behalf 20%. So that's one. So we're not going to talk about that though. Ha!
Okay.
About that. We're not talking. What we're going to talk about, which is the real issue, is that let's say you move your assets into an IRA. Okay. So you do Yeah, let's call it an asset transfer. Let's this. You transfer your assets from your 401k into an IRA. Okay, pretty simple move. I recommend it highly. I think it's a great thing to do. Here's the problem though. Once you make that transfer into the IRA, it's upon you, the client, the person who owns the money, to allocate those resources. So don't assume that the money you transferred over is going to be in the same investments that they were in when you were in your 401k plan. Don't assume that. Don't assume that they will automatically be put in the same kind of account. Don't do that. Most times they're going to be left there, and most people don't know what they want to do. So they move the money into that IRA and it goes into a money market account, which is essentially out of the equity market. I'm just gonna go out on a limb. It is out of the equity market for sure, barely into the fixed income market. So your money is pretty much out of the market. And so if you just leave it there, it stays in that account. And then after 5, 10, 15 years, you look at your account and it has barely grown, if any at all. In fact, it may have lost money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sitting there in the IRA, which used to be a quote unquote safe place. So there used to be an occasion where people would actually put their money there and it would just stay the way it was when they moved it in, right? But now that we've done what we call broken the buck, that is, it's no longer staying there at that particular amount necessarily. At the very least, depending on how much money you have, you may be paying fees to keep that account going, right?
Oh, wow. Do they not tell you this when, I know it's not their responsibility, you're not their responsibility any longer, but do they not tell you this when you're leaving?
I've never heard anybody say that. Mm-mm. Well, will they tell you that there are fees on the account? Yeah. If you read the prospectus, there are fees on the account. Will they tell you that you should allocate your monies? No, that's pretty much on you. You're the one that's putting the money into the account, right? Will they tell you that money is not going to be managed unless you do something? They're not going to tell you that either. So you need to call somebody. You can call me if you want. You can call your financial advisor. Please call your financial advisor. Please do that. Please call the person that told you to move the assets into that account and ask that person, is that all I got to do? Right? Have that conversation. Right? Most importantly, I'm going to say that if you move your assets into an IRA, which I highly, highly, highly suggest, please make sure you take the next step, and that is allocate your assets appropriately for your age, your time horizon, what's going on in your life, right? So don't just move the money into the IRA and leave it there. If you talk with some of our large record keepers, that is, I don't want to say it's the number one reason why people lose money in the market, but it's right up there. It's huge. People put the money into the IRA and leave it there. And then, as you know, the next thing out of their mouth, maybe 5 to 6 years later, is, I put my money in XYZ IRA. It's doing nothing for me. Really? Really? It's not invested. Why should it be doing something for you?
But I guess because, it's been a long time since I've been in a corporate environment. But when you're leaving, they do say, your health insurance, they make sure that the HR department makes sure it's very, very clear that you have so many days. Then it has everything you have to convert it. You have to do the conversion to a COBRA, right? So that's very, very clear. But I don't know how, so if that same kind of conversation, knowing employees like I know employees, if that same conversation is not being had in regards to your 401k or so forth, then they'll just assume that it's still safe there, and they'll just leave it there for safety's sake, especially if the company that they're going to doesn't have a 401k.
Yeah. That's our number 2, is what happens when something like that happens. Just to finish up the IRA portion, allocate your portfolio. That's your next step. And it is on you. We have this thing in our country called freedom. And that would suggest that well, what we don't have is this connection to freedom, which is called responsibility. Nobody really wants that. So with freedom comes responsibility. So if someone says you are free to do what have you with your money, your thought ought to be, what's my responsibility to that freedom, right? And in this case, the responsibility is allocate your resources.
Like the question is, what do you mean by that? How free am I?
Exactly. How free am I?
How free am I?
Yeah. You're free to fail and have no money. Okay.
That's a horse of a different color.
It is. It is indeed, is it not? It is indeed.
Yes, it is. Wow. Okay. Well,
Okay.
good advice.
Yeah. So thank you for that follow-up. Okay. You ready to go on to number 2?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2 is another time when you move your assets after a job, right? So let's say that you're working for a company and that company has a 401k plan, and you move to another company that doesn't have a 401k plan. So instead of moving your assets into an IRA, you leave your money where it sits. Okay. All right. So you leave the money where it sits. All of a sudden, your company gets sold to someone else, or your company decides to change their 401k provider, right? So at any rate, a change happens that you don't necessarily know about. Now, truth be known, inside your 401k plan, if you have money there, there's a very good chance they will send you a little letter that says, hey, we're moving the 401k to XYZ, right? Or if or if that company gets sold, there's a letter that comes to you from the provider that says the company that owns your 401k has been sold. You need to pay attention to this. And here's the reason why. It's very common, since you're not interacting with the firm, they don't know what your needs, what's going on with you. So the safest place is to just hold on to it in a place where it can least lose the amount of money. And that tends to be some type of money market, some type of very, very low interest fund. Right? So you leave your money there. Okay. That company gets sold. All the monies that were in your various accounts, they go into that account, that very out of the market type of money market type of account, or some other account that they deem is appropriate. Has nothing to do with your life, though. And it just sits there waiting for you. You've left your money at the company. That company has been sold. They've changed the record keeper. This can happen 2 or 3 times in the next 8 to 10 years that you've left your money there. Right? Right. So your money is there in that very safe and secure place, if we can call it safe and secure, which those are not good words in my industry. But your money is there, and it doesn't grow. It doesn't grow because you haven't allocated that money to the right spot. You haven't taken the step to allocate your money, to rebalance your money. It's just sitting there. And folks think that, and they don't, and I don't blame them, not wrongly, because I understand the philosophy. They think that having their money in various places is diversification. That's not diversification. If you have your money at XYZ record keeper, and then you go to another company and have money at ABC record keeper, and you go to another money and have another place and have your money at DEF record keeping company, that is not necessarily diversified. So don't make the mistake of thinking that just because you have your money in different companies that it's well diversified. I'm just going to tell you right here and not, it is not.
Okay.
It just isn't.
Wow.
So your money is there, back where you left it, that company that most people have changed careers, not just jobs, but careers in their lifetime 7, 8 times. So let's say this is change number 3. You've changed jobs 4 or 5 times since you were at that job. That company may have been sold. They changed their record keeper. Your monies are sitting in a place that you know nothing about. And it could be a very safe place like a money market. So now you're not participating in the market. So the dollars that you could have made because you're rebalancing your portfolio and you're doing that according to your risk and you're buying low and selling high, you do none of that. Your money is just sitting right there where you left it. Okay. Millions of dollars being lost by participants because they didn't take the step to move their assets into the IRA and then allocate those assets appropriately, or move those assets into their new 401k and allocate those appropriately.
Ah.
Right?
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, people, again, it's all about being accountable, man. That's all I can say. Because the money can be there and it can be gone.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you about that, but you really want to check and make sure that your ends are tied. Don't leave this up to chance. One of my colleagues was talking to a gentleman who worked for a company 30 or 40 years ago. That company had been sold, that account had been moved around, and the retirement plan company had reached out to him at his last known address. Of course, he had left that address 20 some odd years ago, and the mail just didn't get to him. So after a while, they didn't know what to do with the money. Well, they can't liquidate it, right? It's not their money.
Okay.
So after a while, they sent it to the state where he was last living, and those folks hung on to his money, waiting for him to come get it. You've heard of these places, these companies that say, you may have monies, right? And there are actually companies that will actually go get that. Well, unlike me, my colleague is one of those people who believes that our service starts with our policies. It doesn't end there. So she went the extra mile to, number one, find out where this money wasn't, where this money was, who sent it there, how long ago they had sent it there, and finally connected that state agency and was able to find this gentleman's money.
Right? Oh, wow.
She saved him about 20 or 30% because she was able to track that money down herself. Unfortunately, he had never paid his required minimum distribution. So by the time he got to us, he was in his early 90s. So he had left working at 65. He was supposed to take those required minimum distributions at 70 and a half for the last 20 some odd years. So since he didn't take that required minimum distribution because he forgot about the money, I think we talked about this. He forgot about the money. Every year that he didn't take that distribution, and it's different now, but back then, the federal government charged him half the distribution, right?
Oh, man.
So, yeah, charged him half the distribution, plus penalties on top of that. So for about 20 years, this man's nest egg had grown and then sat not growing because it wasn't invested in anything and had decreased considerably.
Oh, wow.
I want to go out on a limb and suggest that after he paid the taxes and the fines, he probably started with about $150,000, $200,000 there. After he paid the taxes and the fines, he was left less than $50,000.
Oh my God! They took $50,000. That should be illegal.
They took more than 50.
Oh,
they took more than 50.
Whatever that should be illegal.
Yeah, they took almost 100,000, and the reason for it was,
wow.
You
said 150. Wow.
He didn't take the required minimum distribution, and he didn't pay the taxes on all that.
Oh.
Yeah.
But taxes, but if it was still sitting where it was, then it really wasn't. I mean, I thought when you pull it out of wherever it was, and then it's sitting, say, in your bank account, that's when it's taxable, right?
Exactly.
But if it's still sitting in some sort of vehicle, how are you taxing that?
Because eventually you had to take it out because he had to do what's called a required minimum distribution. Great question. Question. He had to do the required minimum distribution. Yeah. And so after doing because he had to take 25 years of required minimum distributions.
But he didn't get the 150,000.
But when he actually took them, he had to pay those taxes.
Wow.
Right. And the penalties, which were half of the required minimum distribution. Right?
Wow. That just doesn't seem fair, especially when you're an old person. Like, you don't have any recouping time. Wow.
Right.
Yeah. You have
So
no
trust me,
recouping time. It is what
nobody
it is.
I know, but nobody I know at a financial services firm wants that to happen to someone. So the letters went to him.
Mm. But he just wasn't getting them because he was no longer at that address. And the other people, so the other people that where he was, they knew, but they didn't have a forwarding address. They were just waiting for this 90-some-year-old man to come remember that he lived there and that he may have mail.
I don't know about that part of the story.
Wow.
I don't know how he could afford, how that mail didn't get forwarded or whatever. But do understand that he moved several times within that last, talking 40 years or so, right? So he moved about, right?
And I do think there's a limit of statutation on when. I don't think they just hold it. I don't think if you return it to the post office, I think after a certain period of time they toss it if you haven't come to get it. And the post office is like not your most modern place where they could do a search and say, oh hey, it is in mail, but he lives over here 4 blocks away from where he used to live. They're not that proactive.
Exactly. As wonderful as the American Post Office is, I mean, you get right down to it. You can send a letter from here, Southern California, to Alaska for less than $1. That's pretty good. I mean, you can actually, I stole this from Kathleen Madigan, but you can actually walk into an office and talk to a fully fledged adult and say, look, here's the deal. You're going to take my letter from Southern California to Anchorage, Alaska, and you're not even going to charge me $1? Nope. And we'll do it every day. That's amazing. Right. So
yeah, that's amazing.
It's not
going by stagecoach.
Right? Yeah, 2 days it'll happen, right? 2
right,
days.
exactly.
So I think we need to give our post office their due, but they're not going to follow you around. You have the freedom to move, but you have the responsibility to say to the post office, I've moved.
Yeah, you are supposed to legally. You're supposed to let the post office know that you've relocated and give them a forwarding address. Mm-hmm. I think there's even some sort of legal thing with that one.
Yeah, or better yet, tell the company who's reaching out to you that you've changed address.
Yes, exactly.
Or, as I say, move your money into an IRA. Move it in.
Yeah.
And allocate it once you do that, right?
Well, that seems like the most logical right there.
Keep up with it. And I think the interesting thing about this situation, which probably doesn't happen to very many of us, was that this gentleman was now retired in his 90s, and he suddenly remembered, I didn't do something with that money. That money is somewhere. I wonder if those people stole that money from me. So it had been long enough to where he had forgotten about the money, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's one of your, and we haven't done this in a long time. That's one of yours. Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
So that's it for our show. Any questions, comments?
No, that's enough to leave you settled. Going, wait, did I leave anybody anywhere?
It'd be interesting to find out. Go back to the words,
I think I used mine, but maybe I better check just to be sure.
Just to see.
Just to be on the safer side of caution.
There you go. So That's about all I have for the show. So how about if I do this? I'll read your bio one more time, and then you can make a closing comment, and we'll be done. How's that?
All right. Sounds good.
All righty. So everyone, this is Crystal Mitchell. Well, part of Crystal Mitchell. She's got a lot of stuff going on, but she lets us know about her being a business consultant. a CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, co-host of The Business Zone with Gilbert, that other weekly radio show, an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Crystal, give us the last word.
So I'm just going to say what our last word is. You just don't want to be that guy. You guys, really, accountability and making sure you follow up on things is really vitally important to you. So if you think you have some money hanging out over there, I suggest you go find it and see if you can pull it back in and now put it in an IRA. And then call our trusty guru here and find out exactly what you're supposed to do on your next step. The retirement guru.
There you go. I'll play guru. Sure, why not? Well, thank you, Crystal. That is sound advice. Very sound. And thank all of you for listening to us for this half hour of Conversations on the Patio. And we will see you next time.
All right. Sounds good.